How do you define success in a debate like this, given the fact that this might be your only major exposure to a statewide audience?
Well, I define success in the reason I was initially contacted to run for the Green Party is the Green Party, in my opinion, is what the Democratic Party used to be. So anytime we can increase our visibility, and if I've been able to carry it off without making us look like sandal-wearing, latte-drinking, tree-hucking hippies, then to that extent I consider it a very good success.
Did you get across what you wanted to?
Well, I don't know if one ever gets across everything perfectly. You know, you can always think, I wish I'd said this, I wish I'd said that. There are so many of these. Everywhere you turn in this country these days, there's a major crisis of one sort or another going on that must be addressed in the very near future, or this country is in serious, serious trouble. And I don't know how much time we have as a nation to make those serious changes before we suffer the same fate that Russia did, which is an economic collapse almost overnight.
Did you run because you wanted Lincoln to not win, or along the lines of trying to get 3% to stay on the ballot?
Well, obviously, I hope that people will give us enough votes that we can get 3% and stay on the ballot. I have a lot of respect for Ms. Lincoln. I'm sure she does everything she can, that her heart is right, and she's trying her best for the state of Arkansas. Now, when it comes to free trade issues, both she and Senator Bozeman are die-hearted free traders who have drunk the Kool-Aid, while our economic ground is starting to look like Jonestown after a Kool-Aid party. And I'm saying I'm a totally different thrust than that. So this gave me the opportunity to get the message out, and if I'm very, very lucky, maybe even do something about it.
How would you describe your own politics, or your own political philosophy or ethic, if you will? I heard strains of Hamiltonianism and Jeffersonianism. How would you describe yourself?
I'm very much a student of history. I think this country was started by some exceedingly wise people who understood many things. And they were, I think, better educated than most people today ever hoped to be. And they did things like when they came over from England, they said, we don't want any huge landed gentry and barren estates. You can already see in the United States that money is concentrating in the hands of a few wealthy families, much as it has already done in Mexico. I mean, we're headed down the same path that Mexico trod some years ago, where a few families own everything, and the rest of the people are trying to scratch out a living just to get by. I don't want the United States to go down that path. So we need to resist the establishment of a landed gentry and the uber wealthy who own everything, and everyone else becomes their serfs. And we're headed that way very quickly. I lived in Mexico for 3 years, and I can see it happening here, and it's really quite frightening to me.
What's the number one thing that the country could do what's the most important step the country could take toward preventing
well, there are 2 or 3 first things you need to do. One is people need to put down their televisions and read more. There's a book called In the Jaws of the Dragon that describes the process very, very accurately by a guy named Fingleton. But basically what he's saying is we need to return to that true path that Hamilton had us on for 220 years of positive trade balances. We got off that path about 30 years ago, and now we find ourselves up to our trastes, up to our rear ends and alligators. It's time to get back on that path. And the book that I described by Fingleton describes how we are being played for suckers by the Asian nations, and we better wise up pretty soon or we're going to have problems.
Well, much of our trade imbalance, though, is energy, is it not, sir? I mean, is that ameliorate that situation or that issue to some extent?
There are many things that... Yeah, there are many things that complicate it. I have sat through so many years of companies moving, like Train just lost, what, 900 jobs or so? I don't know, a bunch of jobs they just lost to another plant. I've been through the Whirlpool plant that took the place of the one in Fort Smith. In fact, it's a state-of-the-art plant, beautiful. They take girls out of Saltillo, Mexico, out to this little town, Ramos Arizpe, in yellow school buses. They don't hire men in American maquiladoras there. They hire these women at 18 years old. They fire them at 25 if they're married, and they fire them at 30 if they're unmarried. And they've even started, in many of our American companies down there, doing random pregnancy testing of women so they can get rid of them before they start missing any work. I'm saying we need to address the problems of what our companies are doing out in other countries. Like, for instance, I have met many, many people here from Mexico. Very few of them want to be here. They're here out of desperation to do something for their families. Like, for instance, I'll tell you about one fellow that I personally know in Saltillo who was working on a corn farm in Mexico. Our agricultural subsidies drove the price of corn below the production price, drove his farm out of business. He could not get a job at a maquiladora. There weren't any other jobs around. He didn't want to sell drugs. So he came across the border illegally and now loads boxes on a truck in Kansas City. He goes home every Christmas to visit his wife and 3 lovely children. He has 3 weeks with them, and then he crosses the border illegally, walking across the frontier to get back here. It's very dangerous. And then he works for another year. He'll go back next Christmas. Nobody should have to live that way. And he will have to live that way until we have built jobs in Mexico or required of Mexico that they treat their own people with respect so that they can live at home and have a good living. For instance, if we put the rule, you make something in Mexico, you cannot sell it in the United States unless you pay American minimum wage. Now, the fact is, they will do that because they're still going to sell it in the United States and they're still going to make some money. They just won't make as much money. But the government there will have to be forced to treat their people properly, and our companies there will have to be forced to treat the Mexicans properly. And if that is done, that will go a long way to alleviate the undocumented immigrant problem. And since the drug problem on the border, in my opinion, is a gift to us from NAFTA. We've destroyed all the meaningful jobs in Mexico, so people are going to they are going to eat. And that's one of the last entrepreneurial opportunities left in Mexico, is selling drugs, like in the inner cities of some of our American cities. That's all there is left for them to do because the jobs have gone. So we've got to do something to get those jobs back. Yes.
I thought you did really well in debate. Some of the points that you touched on were they didn't right on them. Could you expand a little bit on your initiatives for education, especially example you used with the University of Virginia, and then also talk a little bit more about the elderly care.
Well, if we reapportion the money that we spend in this country, right now almost 60% of every dollar we have goes for military means in one way or the other. If we cut the military budget in half, which I'm not proposing, but if we did, just as a thought experiment, we would still have the largest army in the world, we would still have the largest military budget in the world, we would be bigger than the next 10 countries put together with that. My question is, if you spend that money wisely here in the United States on advanced armaments and things like, develop some very big sticks and tell people to leave us alone or we'll hit them with one of them, okay? But if you did that, you would free up 30% of that money. If you did that, you could raise the payout on Social Security to more like the money that people were making before they retired. You could lower the qualification age for Social Security to 55. That would free up a whole lot of jobs because a lot of people would retire. That would put even more people back to work. You could do all of these things, and you could have free school through college. It's just that we have these wonderful opportunities in this country, and we're muffing them because of this misguided effort for global dominance and resource hegemony. And it just doesn't make any sense when we could do so much better with the money.
I have a question. So when you propose free school, what is your solution to those who already pay for school?
I hadn't thought about that, quite honestly, but there should be a fair solution. I mean, there is always a fair way to do everything. It's like one of the other areas that you haven't addressed, but I think is extremely important. My mother is 90 years old. I have lived through several of her friends having their husbands die and their pensions die with them. When a veteran risks his life for this country, his wife is paying a price at home too. When he dies, she should be taken care of with dignity until she dies. I cannot stand this thought of not doing so.
You're out of time.
Okay.